We knew that LSU was going to have to get busy in the transfer portal trying to find corners because everybody left. That's the point. When you have a numbers issue at corner and you go fill it with a bunch of very old players, they leave. And then you have a hole again. You got to go get some more players. But LSU has done that. If you missed the news over the weekend, LSU picked up basically 2 commitments at corner. One is locked in. Deuce Chestnut was an All-American and an All-ACC player at Syracuse. He comes in after 2 years up there in upstate New York. And then J.K. Johnson from Ohio State. I don't know that that's been made official anywhere, but he changed his whole Twitter bio to LSU stuff, and he was visiting over the weekend. So it lends itself to believe that you could think he's going to end up in Baton Rouge. So now you look at the corner room, and LSU is in pretty good shape. You've got Denver Harris, who you feel like was a 5-star recruit, was on some midseason All-American lists at Texas A&M before he got in trouble. He's on one side. Deuce Chestnut is very likely a starter corner, in my opinion, based on the film that I saw and the accolades that he got while he was at Syracuse. I feel like you could look around and say, okay, Zy Alexander, you brought in from Southeastern. J.K. Johnson, you bring in from Ohio State. He was a top 50 player in the country out of high school. Played in every game for Ohio State this past year. Was not a starter, but he's played 2 years of college football at Ohio State. You got Seven Banks. You got Latarius Welsh. You bring in Javian Toviano and Jeremiah Hughes in this class. Sage Ryan played in the nickel some for you. I think that Greg Brooks can play some nickel for you. So that's the numbers right there start to stack up. Denver Harris, Deuce Chestnut, Zy Alexander, J.K. Johnson, Seven Banks, Latarius Welsh, Javian Toviano, Jeremiah Hughes, Sage Ryan, Greg. That's 10 guys I just rattled off. I need 4 of them to be players. And all of a sudden I've got a secondary. And the good news with these transfers is there's a chance they could stick around a little bit longer. Johnson and Chestnut both played 2 years at their previous school. Denver Harris only played 1 year at his previous school. Toviano and Hughes are young players. Welch is a young player. So I don't think, now anything can happen this era of college football. Guys can move on. Guys can decide to go to the draft. They can enter the transfer portal. Shake-up is inevitable and always possible. But it feels like your numbers look a little bit better with young players at corner. I love the way that LSU recruited corners over the last 15 years. Everyone does. It was the best operation in the country in terms of recruiting the cornerback and safety positions. And they churned out pros at an unbelievable clip. And they won Thorpe Awards, and they won championships, and they had first-rounders, and it was awesome. And in this staff changeover, when Ed Ogeron moves out and Corey Raymond moves on and Brian Kelly comes in, and all of a sudden McLaughlin and Ricks transfer out, and your pipeline is bare. It was going to take some time to get that back rolling. Hopefully, this is a step in that direction. So, again, I think if I just had to guess, this is purely a guess. Again, I don't have any inside sources. I haven't talked to any coaches. I haven't read any press clippings. Just looking at pedigree, experience, age, perceived talent level, I think LSU starts with a secondary that's got Denver Harris on one corner, Deuce Chestnut on another corner, Greg Brooks in there, Major Burns, and maybe a Sage Ryan, maybe a Seven Banks, maybe Javian Toviano, who's an early enrollee. But that looks pretty good to me. And that's not even mentioning Zy Alexander, not even mentioning J.K. Johnson, not mentioning Jeremiah Hughes, Latarius Welch. So I think you've got the high-end talent. Chestnut was a really solid performer at Syracuse. Harris is a really, really highly thought-of player. Toviano really thought you've got the high-end talent. You've now got the depth as well. And you should put a pretty good unit out there. Whenever we start talking about the next LSU football team, we'll do that in the spring a little bit, and we'll certainly do that once media days roll around in July and in August when they report to camp, and we start talking about it. One, LSU is going to be thought of as a very, very talented team with some high expectations for the first time in 3 years. And most of that is going to be because the offense returns almost everyone. It was a pretty good offense this year. Just about everyone's back. And that makes LSU a high-profile team. But the fact is, you're rebuilding the defense. I went through the numbers on this last week, and we kind of got it figured out. Gay, Ojulari, Roy, Baskerville, Jones, Bernard Converse, Fouché, Ward. I mean, there's a lot of guys moving on from that defense. So you're going to have to rebuild that. And the numbers were pretty much immediately supplemented on the defensive front. You got Lee, Shan, Swinson. You had some guys coming back. Wingo with Guillory. And you got Wiggins. And like you've got, you immediately supplemented your numbers up front. But the back end still needed to be addressed. And I think they've done that now. When you had Denver Harris, Deuce Chestnut, Zy Alexander, and J.K. Johnson, and then signed 2 corners out of the high school class, that's 6 guys, and that's what you had to do. And I think it's been pretty roundly applauded. I don't pretend to watch a ton of Syracuse football. That doesn't come up a lot for me. J.K. Johnson didn't play a ton at Ohio State, and I wish he did. But Bama pulled in a corner from LSU who was an All-American, and he never got on the field until Thanksgiving. So I think this is really good. I think that they're in a really good place in the defensive backfield. I think they've added talent. I think they've added depth. I think they've added young players who could return. And now the pipeline looks more natural. It was always going to be a 2-year reset once you brought in the guys you did. You lost your top 2 corners. You filled them in with seniors. Those guys are going to leave. You're going to have to backfill. They did that. I think the staff deserves a ton of credit for that. And I now think that this team on paper looks to be very, very good. And I've pushed back a little bit when Moscona in his show has said, look, I think this is going to be the favorite in the SEC West. That's not going to be the case as long as Saban's over there. People are just going to default to that, and they probably should. But I do think that as I personally look at this team and I say, okay, what does this look like? I can make a strong case that this is an SEC championship contender. They may go 8-4. I think they can be considered an SEC contender when you look at the depth, when you look at the talent, you look at what they bring back. Yeah, I think that this looks very, very good. So I thought yesterday very, very positive for the LSU football program with the additions of Deuce Chestnut and J.K. Johnson over at corner. I think LSU's in good shape there. Hey, thanks so much for watching the Hunt Palmer Show on YouTube. If you don't mind, throw us a like right below and hit the subscribe button. We'll see you next time.